So it is 7 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And as always, we're going to start with the minutes. We have a lot of minutes to get through. I know this is why you're all here and excited to review minutes. So we're going to start with the minutes from July 15th. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve, subject to modifications.
Okay. First page. Second page. Third page. Okay. I never actually got a second too on that. Anybody want a second?
Second.
Second, okay. With no changes, all those in favor of approving the minutes from June 15th, 2026? Aye. Okay, approved. We'll move on to June 16th, 2026.
Move to approve, subject to modification.
Second.
All right, page 1. Page 2. Page 3.
Third line from the top. Ms. Jensen said she does not believe the August primary election is a feasible deadline for writing a ballot article with the budget number. It should just say ballot article, period. Budget number was sort of aside.
Page 4. With that one noted change, all those in favor?
Aye.
The minutes have been approved. And finally, the minutes from June 30th.
I move to approve, subject to modification.
Second.
Okay.
Sorry, you gotta get faster.
Page 1. Page 2.
And right above five other business, last paragraph up there.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Jensen's just looked into the current impact fees and their relation to TIF. What I was asking was to look into the current, what I asked was looking into using new impact fees to address the non-TIF related needs of the system. And they could say, and also their relation to TIF, because I did ask that too, but it was primarily looking into using impact fees for the rest of the road.
Page 3. All those in favor of approval with that modification?
Aye.
All right, the minutes have passed. With that, we will move on to public comment, as we always do at this time. As a reminder, public comment is open to speak on any subject. If there is an item on the agenda that you would like to speak on that is coming later, you can choose to speak now, or you can choose to speak when that agenda item comes up. The other note I would like to address is it's universal. If you are providing a public comment, public comments are meant to be addressed to the select board. It's not public debate, it's public comment time.
And short.
And short, and we will keep it to 3 minutes for this meeting. So with that, does anybody in the room or online wish to make a public comment at this time? Anybody online?
I don't have anyone online.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, we will move on to the Recreation and Parks updated master plan. And Todd, and Eric, you're going to introduce?
Yeah, I can just introduce
Great.
this for Todd. So this is the follow-up from your discussion at the June 16th meeting, or which meeting it was. Staff has taken the feedback from the board at that meeting. Our consulting team has updated the master plan document. We've put the consultants rather, puts the matrix for implementation thoughts and progression in the Excel file that I shared with the board. For your consideration this evening would be to make that plan final. Todd, I think Todd can speak to some of the changes that have been made to it, so I'll toss it over to him.
I contacted the consultants and just asked them and they gave me a list, so I'm just going to read through. They removed the implementation matrix. Eric already mentioned this from a document itself and is now a standalone workable spreadsheet. They fixed all typos. They updated language about Recreation Park's relationship with the Champlain Valley School District. They clarified roles and responsibilities of the Catamount Outdoor Family Center and its relationship with the town. Added context about Recreation and Parks programs and how they serve children from neighboring towns, not just Williston residents. Added context about the future community park to be built on future indoor recreation center land, and how the concept design will have to be amended once a parcel is finalized or acquired. And then the new recommendations, they put in quotes, work with community leaders to consider a future project focused on scenario planning for the Catamount Outdoor Family Center that explores the fiscal management, operational opportunities and benefits for town-owned land. Second one, continue to work on collaboration with the Champlain Valley School District and clarify ownership and maintenance responsibilities, uncertainties, updating the existing management agreement. And third, consider acquiring school district land on which Allenbrook Community Park and Village Community Park are built. And the fourth and final, consider offering swimming lessons and other water-based programming in Lake Iroquois to reduce resilience on associated costs of using pools at businesses. Yeah. So those are the changes that they had made after their presentation to all of you.
Was there something specific about the Outdoor Family Center? Because that was kind of news to me. I asked Danielle because she's on both committees and she couldn't really explain it to me.
The outdoor, yeah, so Eric can probably better explain it than I can, because it wasn't part of the plan, and my understanding is the executive director of Catamount Outdoor Family Center asked if something could be put in our plan about, like, if the scope of, if they were no longer happening, or
Yeah, future collaboration, I think I heard.
future collaboration,
Yeah.
help,
Okay.
that type of a thing.
Okay, that's what it's addressing. That makes
Yeah,
sense to me.
it's not addressing the town forest.
Right.
I think there was something in the plan, or if I remember correctly, there was something in the plan that just mentioned the town forest as like country parks, what it were, and what town forest was, and that kind of thing.
Right.
But the Outdoor Family Center was a whole separate thing that Catamount Outdoor Family Center was asking for us to sit down with them and just look at what they do, what we do, fiscally.
You both run programs, you both run camps, is there, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that totally makes sense to me. I was
Yeah.
wondering if there was something else, but that makes sense.
And there was an email chain with the language, and I suggested just keeping it kind of high level with
Yeah.
town leaders, not get into specific committees or anything, just not knowing how the structure will be when we do that, just kind of keep it high level.
I didn't know Todd had some plan, some grand plan to sweep in there and just take it all over, so just checking, that's all, you know, Todd.
No. And if I can go on record as saying, and I'm addressing it to you, but it's for the community as well. This is a plan for, 12 to 15 years. And this is a high level, like, it has maps in here that shows, oh, we need a playground there, we need this there. It's not written in stone. It's not a done deal. This is a plan that through workshops and open houses and surveys, it asks the community, what do you want to see? What do you, the growth of the department to go, the growth of the park system to go, and the community park system to go, and that kind of thing. And it's got a ticket price on it at $42 million. That's a lot less than I thought it was going to come in. I thought it would come in at $142 million. But we're not saying we're going to, spend $42 million tomorrow type of a thing. There's some low-hanging items that we can probably do right now, and then some other ones that are going to take designing and planning and asking again the community when it's that time. But this gives us that basis to start, on that road type of a thing. So.
I really appreciated the implementation matrix that was provided, because it really highlights, again, what you're saying, which is that, this isn't, we're going to start work, tomorrow on every single item on this list. It's, in an ideal world, here's the timeline that, we might be able to work on these things.
Right.
And it was really helpful to kind of see that all laid out that way. We have seen similar things. We've done similar strategic plans with the fire department or the police station, and this, to me, is reminiscent of that. Here's the suggestions if we implemented everything to make it as best as we possibly could. That doesn't mean that every single piece of this will be implemented before, potentially another, plan might need to be developed in 20 years, whatever it was. But anytime we're looking at any of this, to have a vision of what could be is so important. And so I really appreciate all the work that went into this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it is, after 12, 15 years, 20 years, half the things may never be done in this plan. And it's time for a new plan, because Wilson's in a whole different place in that time frame.
Yep.
Type of thing. So it gives us a good stepping off, and it gives us a good chance, it gives us a good opportunity to say, geez, this is where we are, this is where we should be, how do we get there, or not, or hey, we're already there, and we're already doing this, and we're, doing better than that, and that's all a good thing. And then, like I said, this is high level, this is 10,000 feet looking down, and everything that everybody wants, but like you said, it's not always going to happen. And we need to look at that sort of thing. But.
Any other questions for Todd or Eric? And if not, there is a motion.
Before I do the motion, I was just going to say that I have a concern, because I think that the number of people who input is really not big enough for me to say, this is what Williston wants. It's like, this is what a motivated set of relative 2%, is the biggest one. So I appreciate this as people who care about the parks a lot and know about the parks a lot, laying out a strategic vision. There's some things in here that, priority-wise or at all wise, that we may find aren't quite as popular as we'd like, but that's sort of back to the point of, it was a lot of fact-based stuff, which I really appreciate. And it's a beautiful vision, but thank you for all the hard work. I'm going to move to accept the Recreation and Parks Master Plan.
I'll second.
All those in
Oh,
favor?
wait, somebody wants to speak.
Yep, would you? I need you to come to the mic, though, so that they can hear you. And please state your name.
All right, hey, thanks a lot. My name is David Martell, live here in Williston.
Just as a reminder, we are going to keep it to 3 minutes tonight.
What's this?
Just as a reminder, public comments, we're going to keep.
Yeah, it's just, so basically, I saw the plan, obviously when they presented it about a month ago. I looked at it on the internet a little bit more, and went around to Essex Junction, their Parks and Rec department, and I noticed that the tennis courts, they're paved over now. They're not even using them for tennis courts. And they have a pickleball, which is now hosted, well, it's actually performed by a private company that has an indoor facility for pickleball. People pay to play, to go do that. The things that they use the most, obviously swimming pool, which is seasonal, summertime is a big thing. They do have a conference room, a community room for people to hang out, do dinners and lunches, that kind of stuff. But the tennis courts, they said wasn't enough usage, and the cost of maintaining it is exorbitant. It's huge. It's because you got to pave it, tear it all up, and with Vermont frost, it's always working it. It's just wasn't worth maintaining it. Colchester just built a nice recreation facility as well, and I believe they're kind of disappointed with the turnout from participants joining and participating at the facility. So the only thing I would suggest is a couple of things. One of them, let's look at the other communities that do have a Park and Recs department and see what's really being used. And I know talking from a lot of people want a swimming pool, they want a fitness center. I think outdoor parks and stuff, they get expensive, you gotta maintain them. The bike paths, they cost a lot of money to maintain as well. And there was a concern I had, I believe you mentioned as well, that in the original presentation, they showed the Williston Central School, the outside area there, fields that they were going to renovate, but that actually belongs to the school, I believe, or no?
Yes.
It does, okay. Also, they mentioned the Circumferential Highway Road, that land as a piece of property that they use for a long park or something, but that's actually owned by the state of Vermont, I believe, as well. So I just think that, I would suggest, because 42 million is a lot of money. Even when it's done in phases, it's still a lot of money. But let's look at stuff that is affordable to maintain, people are going to use, and, obviously land that the town actually owns and not state property or the school property. But I think, definitely a rec department, we need something, swimming pools, fitness center. I know pickleball is a big thing for a lot of people, and indoor pickleball, because Vermont summers are so short. We need stuff that's year-round. And I think an indoor facility, like for pickleball, or even if you want to do tennis, we take a tennis court, turn it into 2 pickleball courts, I guess, if you wanted to. But indoor facilities, I think, is really what a lot of people want, more than, bike paths and walking paths and just open parks. I know people who have dogs want a dog park where they can let the dogs off leash, maybe a dog park. A fenced-in dog park where people can let the dogs off on leash. A lot of people want that, and I think that's a great idea. But that's pretty much all I had to say. It's just, I went to Essex Community Center because I had to go do something over there, and I was really impressed with how busy they are in the summertime, but it's seasonal. The pool's just an outside pool, so that's it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Keep it short.
We might have a position at some point on the Parks and Rec Committee, so I hope to see your name up for that.
I'll tell you what, if I wasn't working 7 days a week, paying taxes, I would be there. No, just kidding. Actually, I should get more involved. I do complain, I don't say complain, I let people know they should get more involved. And I was here last time with my son, he's 34 and autistic. I just can't leave him home by himself. I gotta find somebody to watch him, unfortunately. But definitely, I need to get more involved myself. It's just, it's time. It's a big thing, unfortunately. All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Any other comments? Introduce yourself, please, and
Hey folks, I'm Dylan Hornibrook, also a member of the Development Review Board. One of the things I just wanted to voice in my support of is in the plan, building a facility that is big enough to support tournament structure. I think one of the missing pieces in Vermont as a state is actually hosting environments for tournaments that facilitate inner city competitions, and the amount of economic benefit those can bring into communities, especially into Taft Corners, the restaurants, the hotels. I think that's a really good forward-facing idea. Also, the more we can keep, in-state travel for sports viable. I get really worried about out-of-state club travel. If any of you have kids that do really high-level competitive sports, it gets really expensive when they have to go travel out of state, when they got to go stay at mandated hotels. So I think us building infrastructure that can help keep youth sports less expensive for parents and families and find ways to bring in more additional business into the city, I think it's really positive. I'd really like to keep that as a core piece of the plan moving forward. So just want to say thank you for the forward-facing ideas.
any other comments? All right.
We have a motion.
And we do have a motion. So with that, all in favor of accepting the Recreation and Parks Master Plan?
Aye.
Aye. All right, 4 ayes. The plan has been accepted, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
For all your work
Yep.
and please extend it to the committee as well. I know this was a labor for all of you. With that, that brings us to the Housing Trust Fund allocation and uses for FY 2027. Melinda or
I'll let
Eric?
Melinda take it.
Okay.
Hi, and thank you for having me. So as you'll recall, last fiscal year, we developed a policy for the use of the Housing Trust Fund that set up different sort of programs for funding. And last year, we launched 2 of those programs, the Housing Retention Program and the housing improvement program. It hasn't really gotten a lot of uptake on these programs. There have been 2 grants dispersed for housing retention, and that's kind of a program that helps people stay in their home, retain their housing if they're behind on rent or if they're behind on mortgage, provides a little bit of assistance for that. We've had a few inquiries into the housing improvement program, but nobody has submitted an application for that. We have gotten a few inquiries about other types of funding related to housing, but they don't fit into either of those 2 open programs. When we set up the policy, there's basically a procedure to kind of review it every year and to, you know, for the select board to consider opening up other of those programs for funding. And so we've gotten some inquiries that would fit into a funding program, the construction and rehabilitation funding program. And we know that Habitat for Humanity is going to be doing a project in the village, and I know that they're going to be requesting funding, and that would sort of fall into that additional, you know, construction rehabilitation program. So the committee is recommending that you at least open up that program and possibly others if you want to. As far as the balance is pretty low right now. It's about at $53,000. There is some money from pay in lieu expected, but we don't know when that's going to start coming in. There's one development that has decided to pay in lieu rather than include affordable homes, and that one is currently at the phase of constructing roads and other infrastructure. They haven't gotten any permits to build homes. The payment in lieu will start trickling in once they start applying for those permits. But it's a little bit uncertain to know how much money will be added to the fund or when that money will flow in. So the Housing Committee, in addition to recommending to open up, you know, more broadly to other funding programs, are also recommending, and it's not too early to start thinking about next year's budget, but are recommending that you allocate a substantial amount of money to the Housing Trust Fund and try to do that consistently year over year so that the fund can build up over time and be able to make a significant contribution to an affordable housing project. So I guess that's all I have.
And part of the question for the board is the FY27 allocation. When we set up the policy and ordinance last year, it was set that the board would make available each fiscal year amount of money for those grants. So I think last year's number was maybe 25,000 or so, and the fund balance there is about 53,000 currently, and the policy states you need to maintain a floor of 20,000. So you could make available up to 32,000 around there for FY27 should you choose, or some number lower than that.
Does anyone have any questions for Melinda or Eric?
Yeah, could you just remind us at maybe a high level about the construction rehabilitation program and what those grants look like and how one would receive one?
Right, so that would be open to either a for-profit or nonprofit developer who is developing affordable homes at, I believe, at 80% area median income and below. And they would submit an application. We don't yet have a specific application ready to go, but it's probably going to be pretty standard. And yeah, they would, the housing committee reviews any applications that are submitted, and usually the applicant would come in and talk about, discuss the application and provide more details, and then the Housing Committee would make a recommendation to town manager, who is the acting the fund manager, I guess. And then the town manager would make the final decision about dispersing those funds. And as far as the housing construction rehabilitation, in the policy, there's no like upper limit for funding.
Because it would just be so easy for any one single application to like
Yeah.
take the whole allocation. So I was just curious if there was a ceiling or if, yeah.
Yeah.
And the like uses for the fund or the grant funding within the construction rehabilitation, is that pretty broad? At
Yeah,
this
I mean,
point?
I think it's
Yeah.
just supporting anything related to the development of the housing project.
Thanks.
This is probably not, it's kind of related to the, just add 50,000 to the budget next year, as opposed to the motion. But Erica had an idea, which I'm stealing from the state of Vermont, which is, I don't know if it's good or not. I was just wondering if we could look into maybe the feasibility of saying that the Housing Trust Fund could get anything from rooms and meals collections above budget, up to maybe 40,000 or something like that. And the only tricky thing is the same thing at the state we ran into at the state is like the select board could play games with how much they want to budget on rooms and meals, you know. But I mean, if rooms and meals is $4 million, you know, it's going to have some pluses and minuses. And, you know, if we could just say, hey, our intent is to budget the average of the last 2 years, and anything above that, we would dedicate to the Housing Trust Fund up to some kind of cap. But we don't have to decide now, of course, but if you can just think about that.
Sure, yeah, and we usually get to close out the year, I think in August or so, we get the Q4 report. So as Shirley looks at those numbers to see kind of where we landed from what we projected for the revenue, and if there's an overage in that revenue, if there's a surplus. Essentially, it's designated, it falls to fund balance and
This
then
goes to
audited
fund balance,
financials,
yeah.
so you could always designate something towards a special fund like that. So
yeah.
we can take a look at that this
But it has felt like an open switch that we have this great program and we don't have a way to fund it. So even if we craft that policy procedure as an intent as opposed to a must-do, I think that might make me feel better that we've at least addressed this kind of open switch of having a cool program with no funding, so.
Yeah, I think a lot of communities kind of look at that, it's sweeping in some surplus revenue to, whether it's a capital account, whether it's a special fund
Yeah.
account like that at year end around there, so.
I kind of like the rooms and meals part going into it, so. Anyways, thank you for looking into that.
What would be your timeline for standing up the kind of construction rehabilitation program? Obviously, in the your kind of guidelines and your that's already kind of established, but like getting the application set, getting it out, getting it advertised. I mean, what do you think your timeline for that might be?
I mean, I think that could happen fairly quickly, within, I don't know, the next month or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we were to say like $25,000, and then we could always up that if we had a really good project or something, right? Especially if we ended up having to spend $25,000 and we needed something else, we could come back to the 33 number.
Yeah, exactly. I think trying to recall, we built it that way to just kind of put a number out there to start the year, and as a board decide what you want to make to begin the year, but certainly you can always make more money available. And, if as a matter of policy, you wanted me to come to you to say, hey, we got an application asking for everything here on July 2nd. We can certainly build in those check-ins for process too.
Is the 20,000 balance, it says, requires a $20,000 balance. I remember having that conversation. Is that something that would be hard to change in a pinch, or is that just something the select board has to change in a pinch?
I think, Belinda, is this structured in a policy or an ordinance? I'm trying to.
It's in the policy,
Okay.
so the select board
So
can
we'd have
change
to
it.
change the policy. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I did see, come on.
Hi, it's me again. Question, so the funding that you folks are talking about, does that go towards renovations, or are people using for down payments towards new properties? What is it actually used for?
So it could be used for either of those. There are different sort of buckets of funding. One of the programs that we have open right now could be used for renovations. And the program that we're proposing to open up is more, it's for like larger nonprofit or for-profit developers that are building affordable housing. So that's like for construction or for substantial rehabilitation of existing affordable housing.
Okay.
But there's also, I'm sorry to answer your second question, there is a separate program for down payment assistance as well.
All right. So my question is, I borrow money, get it from her fund, I fix up my house, I sell it. Do I pay back that money to the town of Williston?
So in the policy, it does say for the home improvement program and for, I believe for the feasibility, there's a feasibility study program, that it works like a revolving loan fund. So when you sell the house, you do pay back the money adjusted for inflation.
Okay. I'm out for helping individuals out, obviously, but yeah, if they need to, if they're not going to just use the profit off them, you know, I'm not, hey, give me that money, I'm going to remodel my home, then sell it and keep the money. If I remodel my home, make the upgrades, and sell it, like you said,
Right.
part of the contract, that money does go back to the town, including probably interest or whatever,
Yeah.
or some calculation. Okay. That's what I was kind of curious. It's like, I don't just be throwing money out there and people just taking advantage of it, using it, and then profiting from it. That money should come back to the town.
Correct. Yep.
And there is information too about the properties remaining perpetually affordable too, right? Like,
Yeah, so there is an option. They can either provide a deed that basically states the house will be perpetually affordable, or you pay back the money adjusted for inflation, and most people would choose to pay back the money adjusted for inflation, I
Okay.
believe. So.
Cool, sign me up, give me your money. No. All right, thanks a lot. So I have a question.
any other questions or discussion? I think that, 25,000 feels like a good amount, but we can obviously, according to the guidelines, go up to 32,000.
33,420.
Yeah.
And we could get some payment in lieu throughout the year. It depends on the permit pacing component. So it's not like we're going to get that full amount for that one development, but we could have some additional revenue, but probably not tens of thousands of dollars.
McHugh, you want to get on the minutes that you're?
Yeah, no, I think it's a wonderful thing that we offer. I think it's really important to support people who need help with housing.
Keep them in their homes, keep the houses.
Yeah.
Okay, I move to open the construction and rehabilitation program as an additional program available through the Housing Trust, and further move to make $25,000 available from the Housing Trust for programs in fiscal year 2027.
So second?
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And with that, we have opened the construction and rehabilitation program.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. All right. And now, I think what most of you are here for.
No one's leaving.
The library project revised conceptual design and cost overview presentation. You want to join us, Carla and Eric? You want to open it up?
I'll lead off. We've got a group presentation on a number of different aspects here. Thought as we could go through this presentation, then open up for select board discussion, any public comment at the chair's discretion, and I can kind of kick things off by kind of outlining what we'll cover here this evening and just kind of reset the conversation. So, let's see. So over the last, I think 5 weeks or so, the Library Design Committee has worked on a revised scope for the project. That committee transmitted that scope to the library trustees a week ago. Trustees have supported that scope and forwarded on tonight for your discussion, and a number of trustees are here this evening as well. We're going to provide this presentation with an overview of that work and feedback incorporated in this next iteration of the project. We're going to have an overview of the design and the reasons behind those different elements, an updated cost estimate, an updated project funding scenario, time for discussion and questions. Remind the board the decision point is the overall project scope, budget, and bond amount to inform the legal documents that you would need to adopt prior to the August 3rd deadline to have that on the ballot for the November general election. If there's more discussion on this, the board has July 21st for that discussion. You can then set a special meeting to adopt those legal documents after. If you get to a point tonight where you land on those numbers that we need, we can incorporate those and have potential action items at your next meeting. But there's no rush this evening. You know, it's going to be you're going to hear the work that's been done, the numbers that are out there, and have a discussion. There'll be some things the architects have flagged for potential scope questions to just narrow the final number down. Our library director, Kevin Unrath, joining us online, answer any questions as well. And the team here this evening, we have Carla Carsons from Library Trustees, who's chaired the design committee of our architect team from Black River Design, Mark and Heather, who will go through those elements as well. And as I mentioned, Kevin's online and a number of the library trustees as well. So I think that's the intro here, and so you're going to do the PowerPoint, right, Carla, and I'll drive it?
You're going to, yeah.
Just let me get it on the screen, and then we'll be good to go here.
And there's some other trustees and members of the design committee here. Diane, Barbara, Sherry, and then Jerry Ortega. Take up.
Let me make it bigger. Just tell me when to hit next on stuff, Carla.
Next. Okay, so you can read here, but I'll just go through it anyway, so it's part of the record. So first, the sources of the feedback that we got. The Design Advisory Committee reviewed input from the 2023 scoping study and feasibility study that we're all hearing so much about these days. Input from nearly 1,000 residents. The public meetings that we had and the listening sessions that were held before the votes. Front porch forum and next door discussions. Many frequent letters, emails, and conversations with residents, kind of informal and a little bit formally. And the June 2026 listening session and the project priorities survey. Okay. The key takeaway was that the residents generally agreed the library needs improvement, but differ on the project size, cost, and impact. So what we have here is common concerns about the original plan. So residents who opposed the original proposal often cited that the cost was too high, that there was too much impact on the village green, that the building was larger than necessary, that the two-story design did not fit in with the village center, there was too much meeting space planned, and some of the features reviewed as nice to have rather than essential. Common themes of the plan supporters were residents supporting the original proposal often cited. A library, they wanted a library that remains a vital education and community resource. They wanted more room for books and collections. They wanted better children's and family spaces, flexible community programming space, and improved accessibility parking. Then, with the survey was considered a kind of an advisory survey, and there were over 400 people that responded. And one of the things that Kevin did is, let's see, this is weighted, was he fit the demographics of the town of Williston with the survey respondents and ended up getting kind of a weighted survey here. And so you can see that the high priority things that we wanted to keep were the quiet reading area, improving the parking and traffic flow, and having a toddler and family space. The moderate priority was the large meeting rooms and the small meeting rooms, and then the low priority was the maker space, the village green, and then a kitchenette. So that's
So Carla, I know you're a math person, so I just need to ask. So when you say he weighted, it's weighted, I assume it's mostly age groupings?
It was demographics, age, and then it was also how frequently you use the library. So just taking that into consideration, about half of the town has library cards, so.
Okay.
Thanks. Oh, and then here, again, we just have the same, just kind of looking at the high
Unweighted.
rating. It's kind of similar. So what, and these responses kind of were what the design committee was thinking all along. So the survey results kind of validated what we've been thinking and what the key takeaways that were mentioned before. The cost, that's a big one. So here, the median, as you can see, the median was 10 million. The mean is 9.2 million. The cost comfort, you know, we had like that 8 million or less. You could see the results there. And then in the middle, between 8.5 and 11.5 million and 12 million or more. It was relatively bimodal. So I think, you know, people had a tendency to not really to vote at one end or the other, but it kind of gave us the average. So, and yeah. So what we are looking at today then is a compromise proposal. So we also wanted to emphasize the fact that this is a compromise because both of the votes were very, very close. So we wanted to try to satisfy both groups, the people that supported the library initially and then the people that didn't support the library, and hopefully in the center being able to get more people that can buy into this new plan. So it focuses on today's most pressing needs, not 50 to 75 years in the future. The big one is that it reduces the addition from 11,500 square feet to under 7,000 square feet. And it uses a traditional one-story design that is less expensive to construct and better complements the existing library. It also eliminates the work on the green, which was reinforced by the survey, and it cuts the parking lot area roughly in half, which also keeps the green going, which is something that people, or it gives us more room on the green, which is something that people said that they wanted. And so with that, I will say to the architects.
Yeah, probably. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm, again, Mark Montmany from Blackbird Design Architects.
I'm Heather Mooney, Blackbird Design Architects.
So as Carla alluded to, the feedback that was gathered by the Design Advisory Committee was handed off to us, and we were tasked with taking an initial pass at what a reduced program and scope of the building might look like, whilst addressing the comments received from the community and still maintaining the core needs that were identified for the library users. And I should start off by saying that we didn't go into this task with a preconceived number or in mind. The approach was to have an eye towards addressing the community feedback, but also making sure that we were designing a building that still met the needs of the Williston community. Just briefly, as before we get into the plans and whatnot, we have a few tools at our disposal when we need to reduce the size of a project. The first one is to cut square footage and cut program out of the building. That's the biggest hatchet, for lack of a better word, we have at our disposal. It often results in sacrifices being made to the program. Not everybody's going to get what they want. The other means at our disposal is to use less expensive materials, finishes, and systems when we design the building. And so we've used both of those in this process, as you'll see here. Really, to dive into the floor plan, specifically the new construction, As Carla alluded to, we have reduced the square footage of the building. It was 11,500 square feet. We are now at 6,700 square feet for the addition. As I just alluded to, that means that there were programs that were cut from the project, but that square footage cut does represent a significant savings to the project. I'm going to let Heather go through the specific program pieces that were reduced.
So when we talk about program, we're talking about the square footage of a particular area in the building. And so this is just a comparison, looking at the existing spaces within the building. What on the right side is the square footage areas that were concluded from the feasibility study. If you want to know more about how those came to be, there's a whole report, including the library consultant. And then we have a column for 2025, which was the 11,500 square foot addition. And now this 2026 column reflects the plan that you just saw. So I'll just go through briefly so that we can collectively understand what we have designed into a one-story addition that is smaller. So looking at the existing basement stays the same. The building support and circulation are essentially mechanical space and hallways and things that are hard to negotiate to be smaller. When we look at the collection space, you can see that we have reduced total collection space from the 2025 number. It is still, it is here higher than that feasibility study goal, which can be noted. The picture book stayed the same, which was a goal. The pre-literacy space, which was previously named with a name called Wiggle Room, that's space for children who are not yet reading. It was a need requested by the library. That is larger because we, in this plan, chose to leave a wall in its remaining location versus tearing it down for the purpose of cost savings. So that's why that's that 557. The youth collections comes in just under that 2,700 that the feasibility study sought to include. The young adult section is higher. That was a request from the library director and the library design committee to provide more space for young adults. The adult nude collection remains nearly unchanged, and the adult collection is much smaller than the 2025 plan, but still larger than the existing. When we go through, we've reduced spaces for computer room, the computer room. We've reduced space for the library of things. We greatly reduced the lobby space, reduced meeting rooms, and reduced the size of the multi-purpose library programming room. Also reduced staff space to support a smaller total library area, and eliminated the maker space. That was a request from the library director and the committee, and that might fall into one of those nice to have versus need to have. So that's the breakdown of how we got to or what is included in the floor plan, relevant in terms of considering if a smaller scope is recommended, considering the numbers of what programs should be reduced. We've been asked to address the plan in looking at the addition in terms of cost and its portion and the renovation. So I'll speak now just to the addition, and we'll look at the site plan in a minute. We are suggesting having an entrance so it's one story, which provides some challenges with the site that the two-story solved, but for one story it does provide on-level access throughout the building. The main entrance, we'd be keeping parking at Library Lane, so the main entrance in this proposed plan is at the east at Library Lane. There's a large lobby area, which was a request to have a space for queuing and informal gathering, because the current lobby is really cramped. So a main goal in the addition portion was to have sight lines from the circulation desk to any entrances, and to have an after-hours access to the event or multi-purpose space. And then the rest of that addition is adult collections, adult new collections, and young adult space. So And that, yeah, that follows from trying to reduce the size of the event space, maintain those sightlines for the operation of the library, increase collection space, and provide accessibility for all patrons. We talked on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in conjunction with reducing the square footage of the building, we've also taken the second floor off the building. So this is now a one-story building. So that brings the mass and the scale of the building down. That addresses the concern that we heard from the community about the presence of the previous iteration on the green. It also obviously saves cost going that way. One of the things we did in conjunction with bringing the height of the building down is we've raised the floor level up. So now the entire floor will be at one level. That allows us to eliminate the elevator and the stairs within the building. So again, we're saving money there. It's a net gain because it's more accessible for everyone using the building. Part of that change going to a one-story, and this is where we get into the other method we have of reducing cost, is we're able to construct the building differently now. Instead of steel frame and steel stud infill, we can frame the building out of wood. The walls and the roof can be wood framed. That's a significant cost reduction. The other thing we looked at, the previous iteration had masonry cladding on the exterior. We've eliminated that. We think that's a fair compromise. It's still in keeping with the aesthetic of the original building. Wood clapboards and siding is still in keeping with the original look of the building. Again, it also helps reduce cost. The renovation portion of the building is largely unchanged from the previous iteration. We are still looking at a new mechanical system for the building. We're still looking at envelope improvements for the building. And we're still looking to move interior partitions in the building. That has changed slightly since we've gotten feedback from the Design Advisory Committee about addressing the community needs and which spaces we no longer need or which ones we need to reduce. I'll let Heather walk through the existing building and what's changed there.
So in the existing portion, you can see this green area is the current adult collections area that's now been subdivided into staff area that can support the entire library. But as a whole, we added much fewer partitions to the existing portion and kept some more remaining walls. But essentially, it's a progressive plan that we heard from progressive as in moving through space. From the committee that you enter, and that's the adult collections, bridging to the young adult, into the youth, into the picture books and pre-literacy. So it's a gradual progression throughout that provides pockets of more private spaces and quiet reading, and but progresses from the youngest to the oldest users throughout that whole space. We eliminated the maker space, which was the request, and reduce the number of meeting rooms. That's all for the, so you can see here that the existing event space in the lower left, that's example of a space that is larger than the feasibility request because to make use of an existing space that is an option.
Is it back to being a meeting kind of space? Because it was repurposed in the last design.
So it's listed as the pre-literacy family room.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So it would be more of a children's event space.
Great, good.
Yep, so the last piece of the puzzle is the site. We heard a significant number of comments from the community about the impact of the project on the Village Green. So one of the first things we did was we removed the majority of the Village Green improvements from the project. The one piece that is still in the project is the left-hand turn lane at the far end of the green back onto Williston Road. But otherwise, the improvements that had been previously in the project, the walking paths and the I'll call it a patio for the band, have been removed. We have also reduced the parking. For those that remember, the parking lot used to extend further to the west in the previous iteration. That had 22 spaces. This parking lot has 11 spaces. We've also pulled it further to the east, and so that preserves more of the green space and trees behind the building. to reduce the impact there. The trade-off to reducing the parking behind the building is we are now going to keep the parking on Library Lane, the angled parking. The southernmost spaces that jut out, we're going to move them in so they align with the existing curb. I think we're going to pick up a parking spot there. So taken as a whole, all of those site changes represent a fairly significant cost reduction in the project. And we still feel address a lot of the comments we heard from the community. One of the bigger changes that this design brought about as we went through it is the entrance. For those that remember the previous iteration, the entrance was on the north side of the building fronting the parking lot. By bringing the floor level up to the existing library and pulling the parking lot east, it created about a 3.5-foot difference between parking and floor level. And both Black River and the Design Advisory Committee looked at it, and it was starting to look like not a very welcoming entrance. You were parking against a retaining wall, and then right behind the retaining wall was a sidewalk and the front door. And so we talked, the decision was made to relocate the front entrance to the library to the east end of the addition, fronting Library Lane. We did shift the building slightly to the west to accommodate that, but the thought is that it's going to be a more welcoming entrance than what had been in the north, on the north side. There is still an entrance to the north that's required for emergency egress. Right now, we're showing it as accessible. It could be a staff entrance, it could be an after-hours entrance for the community room only use. That's one piece that will probably be looked at closer as we move forward. So that's quickly the design. I'm sure the cost piece is probably where people want to hear the story. So the project that we've just described to you is just over $10.2 million. That is all in. That includes owner soft costs, a 10% contingency, and hard costs that are inflated to 2027 construction start. The estimate that we received, that's based on starting within the next month or two. Our estimator estimates and updates his numbers every 3 months, and so we've applied inflation to get to when we think the construction start for this project would be, which I would anticipate at this point we're probably about a year or so out from a construction start.
That was one of my questions, because I don't think we ever had a plan to start construction now. I mean, if it got approved, we couldn't have ordered a thing until April, so I was surprised to see.
Well,
I thought we were constructing this year.
No, there was, as far as I know, there was no intent to construct this year, but the estimate that we received was current through today. And so we need to inflate it to get to 2027. And even if we had started construction in spring of 2027, we would have applied inflation just to cover those first few months of 2027.
So I can't compare this, I mean, if I were to do it, I can't compare this detail estimate to the last one, because this new one has been inflated already.
And
the last one was inflated to 2027 as well.
Okay, well, now I'm confused again. We're starting construction in 2027 in both cases, so why is there an inflation factor?
Because the numbers from the estimate that we're receiving now are based on 2026 numbers. They're 2026 costs.
So there was an error last time?
Nope.
Oh, those were inflated too?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
The previous estimate he did with the 2025 current building costs.
Uh-huh.
And then that was inflated to the anticipated construction start date for the.
Okay. I just compared the two sheets I had, and
Yeah.
I didn't see an inflation factor on last one, so that's why I was
We
confused.
could
Okay.
better break that out.
And I can explain that. That's because the inflation in the last version was applied to each line item.
Right. Okay.
As I was doing it, I like seeing that I've covered all my bases more or less, and so I put a separate line in there. They both have the same inflation to 2027 in them. It's just I've had a separate
Okay.
line item for it, so.
Thank you. Okay, that explains it. Yep.
So really quickly, just to go through some of the numbers, and these are rounded. The addition is $3.4 million. The renovation is $2.8 million, and the site is 1.4 million. And if you add those up, you will not come to 10.2 million, because I've left the soft costs and other stuff out. But in terms of the chunks of the project, those are the three cost drivers for the project. And so that's, within that $10.2 million, there are a few avenues to bring the cost down. Right now in the project, there is a 1,200 square foot basement under the west end of the building. That was put in potentially for storage for the band, so they have easier access for their equipment. It also could be a mechanical space. That is about $108,000 in cost. We also have an 800 square foot mechanical penthouse that's up in the roof trusses. As we reduced from 2 stories to 1 story, we still need to have mechanical spaces. That 800 square foot mezzanine, if you will, is roughly $50,000, but it can't be taken with the previous one I mentioned, because we need mechanical space either in the basement or in the mezzanine, so they can't be taken together. The other piece that still needs more review with our consultants when we move forward is we've included $345,000 in cost to re-roof the existing building. That is because we are putting a new mechanical system under the roof of the existing building, and it's expected that that roof is going to have a lot of holes put in it. It is also an uninsulated roof, and so this improvement would insulate over the top of the roof. Obviously, as directed, we can reduce the scope of the project further by way of more square footage cuts or looking at other options. So that is where we are.
I'll add, when you talked about the mechanical penthouse, we haven't talked a lot about the massing of the building. We've not been directed to get to like a rendering stage, but the idea of this, the size of this addition is that it could be a gable roof in the same direction as the original brick portion of the building. And so that would provide space within the truss space for mechanical space. When we talk about that penthouse, it would not be as designed a necessarily flat roof with stuff on top of it. That penthouse would be within the structure of the mass of the building.
I was, sorry, did I talk over somebody? I was surprised that the site work number didn't come down more, given, seems pretty dramatically different.
Yeah, so previously the site work, there was roughly 1.6 million in site work, and then there was an additional 896,000 for the Village Green improvements.
Right.
And so in total,
Yeah, I'm just talking about the 1.6 million. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So total, that was 2.5 million. And so now our total site number is 1.4 million, so.
Right, but without the improvements, it was 1,669, and now it's 1,438. So it came down 200K, and we took a big chunk of the parking out, and we eliminated all the work along Library Lane, most of it. So I know the footprint of the building is, I mean, it's slightly smaller, but you don't have to do you cut the second story doesn't require a lot of site work. So I understand that, but I would have expected.
Well, and raising the building up to match the existing floor level does create site work on the northeast corner of the building.
Yeah.
Because we do have to transition from the sidewalk and the parking spaces along Library Lane in the back of the building into the building. And so we still have a fair amount of rework of sidewalks, pavement, and we're adding concrete retaining walls in some cases to accommodate the accessible ramps. So.
I'll add, so we've reduced the size of this parking lot, but it's still the excavation and fill and all of that for the parking lot.
Right.
Half a parking lot is not half the cost of a parking lot. But you can see here with the contour lines how much fill is needed to add to get up to that grade at the existing building. And with keeping parking at Library Lane, that's requiring to tear up and do new subbase and new paving, which was included in the previous was to have new subbase, new paving along Library Lane, but not all of these parking spaces that would be essentially added back after the site work is complete is a cost that we'd have to go through specifically to compare pavement and subbase and curb to sidewalk and plantings. But I suspect that could be where some of that not savings is coming from by adding more essentially road work on library.
So I can
Go ahead.
round out the presentation for the board, just the thoughts on, so that's kind of the revised scope estimate that we've gotten so far, thinking about funding for that project. So you heard it's about $10.2 million with this scope. A thought is looking at a bond of $9 million. We have our capital campaign to date, which has pledged $750,000. Thought could be to have the capital campaign round out that funding structure for the project. Potentially, if it fell short, looking at anything from that was looked at from ARPA originally for the project as a potential fallback. I ran this by our town attorney. We're in a different spot at this point because before we're thinking of bonding for the full amount to start the capital campaign. The town attorney advised that that approach is okay by the select board if you want to take that approach. Really, if you pick that bond number, knowing what we fundraised to date and knowing you have to close that gap, you're essentially setting a project budget with the scope estimate for the project, and then trying to determine how much you want to look for public financing for that and how to round out the funding structure. Those are some of the decision points for you. I haven't seen where you land with this discussion. I can have the bond bank run a sample amortization schedule and kind of project the budget impact for FY28 for your next discussion here. Would still think potentially having those two series for the bond, but we'll have to look at that a little closer with the timing of everything. If it didn't make sense to do two bond sales, depending on where the construction timeline's lining up, and we still have that opportunity for the energy efficiency 10-year note at a 2% interest rate for that component of the project. We haven't run those numbers yet on that scope to determine what that estimate could be, but just knowing the timeline we're on, those are the opportunities to have a lower interest rate for part of the project there. And your decision points are really, you need to have a good idea what that project number is, if it's 10.2 or something different, and then deciding what you want to put for a bond question as part of all this.
I do, one of the key considerations for the folks who use the library was that the library would still be usable during construction and renovation. I assume that with this plan that is still feasible?
It is. I would say it probably won't be as usable as the previous version. The previous version, the 2 stories allowed us to move almost all of the library into the addition while the existing building was being renovated. I think in this scenario, and it's been factored into the estimate, there's maybe an extra move in there because we don't have as much swing space, as we call it, to move the old into the new and then renovate the old area. So it may be that instead of, both wings being cleared out and the renovations happening, it's 1.5, and so there's an extra move in there, and the phasing takes a little bit longer. But I think there is still an avenue to keep the library open in some fashion during construction.
That's our presentation for the board.
Excellent. Any questions from the board for the design team, for the trustees? We'll get to public comment in a little bit. Or Eric?
I just want to say thank you for your work on this. It was a really quick turnaround over the last couple of weeks to get this, and I think it struck a nice balance of addressing some of the main community concerns and weighing the wants and needs, and I think it still results in having that vision of a really more robust and multi-generational learning hub in our community. So thank you.
My biggest concern is that $1.5 million for site work. I'd be interested in seeing, do we even need the new parking lot? Because if you can walk 20 feet across the street, there's parking at the school. So that would take, I just don't know, have a feeling if we eliminated the parking lot, would that save $1 million?
I don't think it would save that much, but that's a valid point to put on the table as a cost savings. I think that would obviously require a heck of a lot more conversation.
Yes, a little more work, yeah.
But I think those are the things we're going to need to look at as we go further here is, and, you know, that parking lot could be an alternate in terms of if we design it and then, you know, depending where the numbers come in, we do it or we don't do it. And there's other parts of the project scope that we could design into the project as an alternate. And then where the numbers come in, we can either add it in because it came in low, or we can't do it because they came in high, you know. So there are ways we can build in some safety factors, if you will, to the project, depending on where the numbers come in at bid
I
time.
kind of like that idea, but it's especially now that we've moved I know accessibility was a big deal, but now that we've moved the front entrance back to Library Lane, you could put the accessibility parking spots there. So I just think that would take a big chunk out. So I would be interested in seeing that option to not do the parking lot unless there's a really good reason to do it that I have not heard.
As someone who works at that school daily, I can tell you that the school parking lot is completely inaccessible to library patrons during the day.
Yes, I get that.
More
but I
often than
also-
not, the library spots are used by school patrons during the day.
Yes.
And so I would be hesitant to take out the additional.
And I totally get to, I'm just not sure that the library's biggest use is during the school day. So that's, of people who drive. And if it is, then, you know, that's a piece of evidence that I would consider, but it's just an awful lot of money. I was hoping it would be a lot less, so that would be an interesting alternate. Maybe we don't need contingency on the furniture budget, so. Yeah, otherwise, thank you very much for the hard work and the quick turnaround, and I know I appreciate especially, I know how hard it is when something you put your heart and soul in, this is more for the design committee, put your heart and soul in and you have to cut it back is super hard, so I appreciate that, but I think this is a really good plan.
Yeah, I very much appreciate that this is truly a compromise. And that's the definition, right? Everybody's not going to get everything they want, but it still, takes our library very much into the future. I think some of the, discussion points, putting the mechanical in the mezzanine, for instance, I love the town band. I can't see spending, $60,000 additional dollars to give them square footage in the basement for their storage of their instruments and stands. I love them. I will find a solution for it, but a $60,000 solution doesn't feel like it. But I appreciate that there's these kind of pivot points that we can look at and work towards. So yeah, any other questions for the folks now? I will open up to some public comment. Otherwise, at this point. Okay. I will remind folks 3 minutes. I'm going to ask you to time. So 3 minutes, you'll come up, you'll introduce yourselves, please. And again, you're addressing the board. You're not addressing, this isn't a debate. So thank you. I'll start over here and does that work? I'm going to start here just because my visuals. So she's going to start and then, yep.
Hi. My name's Sarah, and I, again, appreciate the work that's gone into both the original design and now the redesign. I would like some clarification about how the redesign affects accessibility, especially for those who are using wheelchairs, walkers. I think it's important not to inadvertently exclude folks from the use of the library. And I think it is important to do the site work that is necessary to get those folks through the door. And I prefer that it be the front door, not a side door or a back door. And then they also need to be able to move about the space. They need to be able to get to the bathrooms, and they need to be able to use every space. So I don't want that to be lost in translation. I don't want that to be lost in the cuts that have come in. I'm sure the designers are already on top of that. It's just not something that was discussed tonight. Thank you.
Do you have a second to address that? Or Carla, whoever, yeah.
The design right now, including the access from the parking, is all accessible.
Even from Library Lane?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. We are not allowed to design something that isn't accessible. From the parking space all the way through the building and back out, it needs to be accessible. So we keep that on our radar throughout the design process. But even the back door fronting the north parking lot, that is accessible right now. There's some question as to whether that, we need that door for emergency egress purposes, but that has been made accessible as well. So this building will be fully accessible and compliant.
And the whole part about on Library Lane is bringing the whole area along Library Lane at the entry level, so that it would not be a ramp at that location. It would be all the grade level would be the same floor level, which is a parking lot, which is obviously different than what it is right
Now,
now.
right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Which is part of the site cost that is. And all the accessible bathrooms. I don't need to talk about the bathrooms specifically, but that's very important to us in terms of how the building operates.
Can you also clarify with the extra parking lot, that adds the ability to have additional accessible spots, correct? So there will be additional spots with this plan?
There will be accessible spots in the new north lot and along Library Lane.
Okay, thank you.
And I saw your hand up here, so if you want to come up and sit, whoever's, choose amongst yourselves.
I just have a quick question about the parking.
Can just introduce yourself, please.
Okay, my name's Phyllis. And when you go down Library Lane and you take a sharp right, there's a bunch of parking there?
Like Silverbrick Church?
Is that part of the library parking, or do you?
When you take the right into the,
Towards the park?
Before
towards the
school,
park?
It's going towards the park.
Currently, that's some staff parking for the library staff and also for the school staff.
Okay, so that parking is not
I think
for-
technically it's the schools.
Okay, because there seems to be a lot of parking there.
Yeah, there's no reason you couldn't park there if it's open. It's public park.
Thank you, Jane.
Some of it is labeled off to school staff, but.
Library staff, not school staff. I'll have to go look, that's changed.
Pretty sure. Or school staff's parking.
Yes.
Yeah, come. Sit.
Hello, I'm Jim Haltz. I'm a resident here. I just had a question actually for the design team. As far as the design now, not the square footage, but the actual footprint of the building, how much smaller is that than what was the original design? Is there a change? I know you're going from 2 stories to 1, so there's a potential that the footprint itself might not change, just the square footage would change.
I need to double check on that, but I believe the footprint is actually larger because it is just 1 story.
Okay.
7,000 feet versus before we had, it was about 5,500 feet.
So it is increasing the impact on the green then?
Yeah, I need to look at the numbers, what the exact changes, but the footprint is larger to accommodate the space in 1 story.
Okay, and then the parking lot, the additional parking lot to the north is smaller on the green because there's less spaces, correct? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, can I just say something?
Just come, I'm actually just going to ask everybody to come up here when you're responding because
Come
people
on down.
online will not be able to hear you.
Or recording.
So this was something that we were concerned about because there had been some numbers that had been kind of thrown out there. And so Kevin actually took a ruler and measured the impact. And so it's about 15% of the green will be used with the new plan, with the parking lot and the footprint.
Okay, so 15% of the present green will be now used for the new design,
Yes.
including the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean, there was 30% that was thrown around, but that's not
Okay.
that's not what's happening.
So what is the square footage? What is the footprint square footage now? Do you know that? 67. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Who's up next?
Ron Bliss. Question, when did you start this whole revamp part?
Well, after
Yeah, I think the committee met after the listening session. Yeah.
But the original design had the thought in mind that there could be things changed if necessary, and there were ideas prior to even the vote about what could change. So this is part of the original design, included the thought of reduction.
Okay. And when did you finish this design?
We received the updated estimate yesterday. I would say the plan and the site plan stopped moving last week.
Okay. And just to clarify, the survey went until July 4th, did it not?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, you're addressing the select board, and then we'll call people up to answer your questions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lauren Kumjian. I have a lot of thoughts, so let me see if I can organize them, because
just a reminder, 3
we
minutes.
saw this plan at the last library board meeting. So to address your question about, I mean, it was already done before the survey closed. I don't think the survey really had any impact. I'd want to see what the weighting was, because you really didn't have a whole lot of demographics. But it's not my job. I'm just a private citizen with a degree in this area, so I can, spot errors. But, I'm not opposed to the plan. I am concerned about the fact that the footprint is larger now. That wasn't the intention of reducing cost, to get a larger use of the green. And I agree with Jean. I don't think the parking should be set in stone at this point. I think that should be an option, because I see around the school other places where parking could go, like when you do go behind the brick church and you have 2 rows of parking there, that there could be space between those rows and the bus turnaround, for example. There's a big wedge of green right there, and it doesn't have trees on it. It could be too wet for that, I'm not sure, and it slopes down a little bit, but it could be another place for parking. So I would prefer to see parking removed from this part or put on hold, and then we can take a look at where around the school other parking might be. I feel like, especially when when kids are in school, I don't think the handicapped issue is a problem outside of the library. I think probably when school's getting out, it could be, And the other question I had, though, I was going to address to Ted Kenny, because at our last meeting where the library was discussed, he and Charity Clark had a very strange interaction that many people left here thinking, what was that? Where she said, and he said, well, you're my boss here, but I'm your boss there. And to me, and a bunch of other people, it reeked of impropriety, conflict of, I don't want to say conflict of interest per se, but of conflict of not having an unbiased view. And I was going to ask Ted if he was here, if he could explain that. Did he ever work for her? I know he worked in the Attorney General's office. Is he going to seek employment with her in the future? Is there some reason to think that he would want to stay on her good side?
Lauren, I hate to interrupt, but this is 3 minutes.
Yep, so I can address that briefly, or Eric,
You don't have to if it's something
Yeah, no,
that
Ted Kenny is, it's public knowledge, he works for the state of Vermont. I believe he's currently in DCF, or Department Department, and Charity Clark is our Attorney General, so all attorneys fall under the state. He has publicly disclosed their relationship, prior to all of this, and, so it is not unknown public knowledge that there is a relationship there. And the select board is, I think his reference was that in terms of the town, the select board is the governing body of the town. And so everything else falls under our purview. And so that is, to the best of my understanding, I can't speak to the exact choice of those words, but that is the nature of the relationship, and that has been publicly disclosed and is public knowledge.
But when the town is losing trust in this particular situation with this board, library board, and you've just added more distrust to the dynamic that's going on. I mean, I agree that the project should move forward. I don't disagree. But I have a concern that he never recused himself, or he never revealed that in other meetings when those of us got more actively involved. So there is a feeling like it's not sitting.
It has been publicly acknowledged, so, but we can certainly, discuss that further.
I didn't see it in minutes, so I don't know how far back it was. I looked.
Yep.
And I didn't see it in the select board minute.
Not you. Her, yeah, sorry, sorry, come,
I just want to respond to the footprint.
Yep.
So the previous plan had a 5,800 square foot footprint on the site. The second floor was slightly smaller, and reducing the total addition from 11,500 down to under 7,000 in one story, eliminating stairs, eliminating elevator. That is now at close to 67. So it is 900 square feet more of footprint. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Okay. And with the, just to, with the removal of half of that parking lot, ultimately, the percentage of the town green that the building is taking over is still less than it was in the original plan, is my understanding. Yes. Yeah, so it's ultimately, it is still taking, less space from the green than the original plan is. Yep. Okay, great. David? Well, even if I didn't, this is your third time here today, so.
Let me stop him at the door, I hope so. Actually, I like the plan. I think it's a nice design. I think they put a lot of great work into it. I'm not really sure if it's necessary, but I do like the design. The parking lot, as far as the size of it, could it be incorporated with the other parking lot from the school? You mentioned that people park in the library parking spaces that probably shouldn't as well. So is there signs that say library parking only, trying to get those people to not do that and park with it? Okay. The big problem I have with it is the cost. So I've got a lot of friends that do construction, work for major construction companies in the area. So the average cost per square foot on a medium construction build, about $225 a square foot. That would make this project about $1.5 million. If you do high end at $325, you're talking about a little bit over $2 million. So that's a big leap from that to what they're saying. And also the parking lot it's basically 12 parking spaces. One of them looks like it's probably for handicapped accessibility probably. So let's say 12 parking spaces. You're looking at say $60,000 to $100,000 to do a parking lot of that size. You're still talking way below $10 million. That's a lot of money. Now the renovation portion of it as well, talked to a couple of friends that do construction, they're like, that's crazy, that's just way too much money. You could rip the whole building down and redo it over for $3 million. It doesn't make any sense. I think we need to have several quotes on this project, not just one, but local companies in the area or construction, even out of state, give us quotes on this project. It seems like projects like this get, it's like, it's a state project or a government project. And I work for the government, hate to say, some people might not like that. Government projects are ridiculously overpriced. And they've always been like that, but it's a trend we need to stop because we really can't afford to do it, at $10 million. It's just way more than what the project should actually cost. Another idea I thought about, we have a lot of construction companies in the area, a lot of lumber and building material suppliers, and concrete companies in the area as well. Have we approached them to see out of goodwill that they would donate materials or a reduced price for concrete, a reduced price for building materials, a reduced price for HVA stuff? So let's try to save some money and see if we can get these people to basically not like donate 100%, but do a reduced price on materials for this project to bring the cost down. We have a lot of large organizations in this town, a lot of large Curtis Lumber, we got Ireland Concrete, Home Depot. There's all sorts of building manufacturing material companies in the area that could definitely, if you approach them, they would probably do something to help pitch in for their local community. And it's a tax write-off for them, it's a donation. So that's something I think we should look into as well. But if you look at the cost of the project per square foot, the $10 million is insane. It's just ridiculous. The cost of the renovation is insane at $3 million. That's just ridiculous. Now, I do understand if people see it as a state project or a town project or a government project, and they just throw the crazy money out there. This is what it's going to cost. But I think we need to try to control that, bring that down, get multiple quotes from contractors in the area, and see what we can work with. Let's negotiate with these people as well, not just take what they give us. Let's negotiate with them to get the best price possible.
Thanks, David. That's your 3 minutes.
But I do like the project. I do like the project. I think they've done a good job with it.
Thank you.
I like it. Thanks a lot.
Is there any online comments?
Yep, we have one. Question about the courtyard space. Asking why it's being retained in the project. Why are we hanging on to the courtyard? This is usable space. This could keep more of it and more of the back green. It's only used a couple months a year. I don't know if anyone wants to address that question with the courtyard component.
So is the question, why are we not closing the courtyard?
I believe so.
Filling it
Yeah,
in.
why is it continuing to be a courtyard space?
Well, I think the easiest question is it would be wildly expensive to infill that. You would need to build a structure inside that courtyard, and then you would need to roof over onto the existing roofs. Probably you're looking at flat roofs with internal drains, and those usually don't go over well. The other issue is you would be cutting off access to daylight for those 4 sides of the library. We try and incorporate daylight into all the projects we do. The other reason is, our understanding is that courtyard sees use, and it's a nice space. So that's not to say if we weren't directed to, or if we were directed to look at enclosing it, we would certainly do that. But I think based on the previous iterations of how an addition could be attached to the building, where we landed is in keeping with the option that was decided upon. I don't know, maybe Heather, you do, if infilling the courtyard was ever considered?
It was considered, and for the reasons you described.
Really quickly, just to address the last question about cost, we would envision this project being publicly bid, so there would be multiple bidders on this project. We try to do that with all our projects because competitive bidding helps bring the cost of the project down. But we have to assume when we're doing a cost estimate, we have to make assumptions about the costs. We have to build the building, and we can't assume that we're going to see competitive bidding with that. I will also say that dollar per square foot costs, and I believe, and I'm going off of memory, the new construction is about 500 a square foot, and I think the renovation is a little over 300 a square foot. Those are in line with the numbers we're seeing for commercial construction right now. And I'm not trying to dispute that they're high. The cost of construction went up during the pandemic, and it has never really come back down or rebounded. And looks like it's only going to continue to go up. So, anyway.
Thank you.
I think we're required to bid. We can't just decide not to
Yeah,
go
it's
to bid.
the legal process, yeah.
Municipalities don't have much option. It would be interesting to see some, to see if those, some evidence that those numbers are in line with current commercial building in Vermont. That would be interesting to see, but.
Sherry, you?
Hi, I just wanted to, I'm Shari Westman. I am a library trustee, but I'm just going to speak from my own personal experience using the library and the parking. I think the new parking lot, as a resident and a library user, is really important for multiple reasons. One, when I used to go to library programs with my children when they were younger, the parking lot filled up a lot and early and often, and in the winter, parking over by the brick church, which was recommended before, is something that we did often. Then you're walking through an active driving space with your young children on the ice and in inclement weather, and it's not super pleasant. And I think to accommodate the patrons of the library, it's really helpful to have designated library parking that is near the library that does not require anyone to walk on active driving spaces. Walking without sidewalks in some of the areas, walking with the cars is really uncomfortable. I also believe that we need additional accessible parking for people of any age. It's not just about young children, but it's about the people of all ages who use the library, being able to park nearby and being able to get in for whatever their ability is. And I don't believe that expecting people to be able to park in different places, especially now that the school has blocked off the parking off of the auditorium at school pickup hour. There's like 40 minutes where no one's allowed to park there at all. That's challenging. Plus, having the area where the school buses come in and parents come in be in the same space as the only parking is a challenge for safety and for accessibility. So I just want to say, from the perspective of just a resident and as a patron of the library, my experience, and a parent, my experience is that the existing parking, there's a reason why when we were looking at parking options, and we looked everywhere. We talked about parking on multiple occasions. Now I'm speaking as a trustee. We talked about parking on multiple occasions. We talked about different locations. We talked about different spaces. We talked about other land that we might be able to use that was nearby, whether or not it would be available. We talked about the existing parking for the school. We talked about parking a lot. So this is something we really considered. If there are other ideas, please bring them forward, but it is something that we've discussed significantly.
Thank you. Dylan.
So, Dylan Hornibrook again. This is actually more for Eric, and this is more of a town finance question. So, obviously, when we're creating this estimate, we have to take kind of the worst case scenario because we only get one chance at drawing the bond on this project. So you need to make sure that the estimate level is significantly high to cover contingency, unforeseen costs. But when the bids come in later, if they come in under, and I know building projects very seldom come under estimate, but in the case that, we do find benefactors that can cut certain costs or the bids come in more competitive than imagined, what happens to bond funds if the project somehow runs under?
Yeah, if it runs under and you have, say, you have additional bond proceeds at that point. The bonds have been sold, the town has the bond proceeds. It's a question of what to do with the proceeds at that point. They can be refunded, I believe, or if the scope changes at that point. But I know we've had, for example, I think we had some excess bond proceeds that the voters approved to use towards like the solar trackers in the backfield, things of that nature. But there's timelines where you have to expend those bond proceeds. And I'm not sure, did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes you have the bids before you finalize the bond, so you'd know that. And then that's what we're talking about, an add alt. It's like you say, well, if the project comes in under, then we can do the parking lot. That's another way that people manage that, because it's got almost $1 million of contingency. So.
Right, and I know us setting the bond level now is more of a necessity because we have to be on the, you have to send the state the language for the ballot at what date?
Yeah, a deadline of August the 3rd, and that's set by the Secretary of State's office for it to be on the general election ballot that's mailed to all registered voters by the state for November.
Right. And last point of clarification, because we are changing the bond amount, does that mean the state protections on no double reconsideration would not be valid in this case?
Yeah, the town can have a new bond vote essentially for where we've been this year to where this bond question would be.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Real quick, and then we'll, yep.
Hi, Sarah again. So one thing that caught my attention in the revised plan is that we went from a steel frame building to a wood frame building. And I understand that the choice was made based on the cost savings of the construction. But I'm wondering if that choice has any impact on the expected lifespan of the building and upkeep and maintenance of the building, given that we're talking about a very different material potentially. Thank you.
Yeah, so our approach would be to design a building that can last 50 years as a starting point. We have to look at the materials we use that go into that. The wood framing itself, I don't foresee an issue with that. It's really the cladding outside of that. I will say that by going from brick, which I'm going to call a forever material, to wood clapboard, it's going to be painted or stained, it's going to require maintenance. The previous iteration of the project had wood siding on it. We've just put more siding on it. So that is a maintenance issue. The existing building has that same maintenance issue. So that's the piece that will require maintenance. The roofing is asphalt shingle. Those have a lifespan to them of 30 years. So we do our best to design a building that will ideally last 50 years, if not longer. And every time we make a decision about the materials, we keep that in mind. So, if we're going to save money, we need to understand what the trade-off is when we do that.
I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, I understood that we went from steel to wood because we had to be in steel for a two-story building. Or that's what we chose because it was a two-story building. And now that it's not, you can go to a wood frame.
I have to be honest, that was before I
Yeah,
landed on
right.
this project, so I'm going to throw the previous architect.
Heather's gonna save you.
There she is.
We did incorporate steel columns and beams to support both large spans in the multi-purpose spaces in the lobby. We wanted open space on the first floor, and so that required steel. And for the second story to support mechanical space and again, open space. But the way the floor plan is now, we can use wood trusses for the roof and wood framing.
Great, thank you.
And our director, Kevin's online. He had a comment on that.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay, Eric?
Yeah.
Yes.
A little soft.
Thank you.
Yeah, turn this up a little bit.
So I wanted to just mention as well that by eliminating the elevator, that's also a significant maintenance reduction. Elevators are extraordinarily expensive to build and to maintain. And by not having an elevator, that's another advantage. And then also by eliminating the square footage, that's less square footage that we have to clean, that we have to heat, that we have to cool, and that we have to deal with in general. So there's some savings in terms of ongoing costs related to the elevator and to the maintenance of the additional square footage, and operational costs related to staffing 2 floors. It's much easier security-wise in a public building to staff 1 floor than 2 floors. So I did revise our ongoing costs associated with the addition, and they're basically cut in half every year for what those ongoing costs were going to be. And I just wanted to point that out.
Any other comments online?
Nope.
Anybody who hasn't spoken who wants to chat in the room? And then, so there's no substantive decisions we need to make tonight, but the, Design and Advisory Committee and the trustees are looking for our feedback. And, we do, in an ideal world, we'd, come and be able to make some decisions for the next meeting, which is the 19th, but we can hold a special meeting just for the purpose of getting these articles on the ballot, if need be, before the August 3rd deadline, right? Because our next meeting is
August 18th.
August 18th, yeah.
Scheduled.
So we would have to have a special meeting if we didn't get the, ballot items decided on and voted on at the next meeting.
Essentially, if you're going to consider action on those items next meeting, I'd want to just make sure those documents are prepared in advance. So it's really those two critical numbers, the overall project costs and what you're asking for a bond. So, if you have that tonight, we can build that in for the agenda next time, or continue this discussion and land on that number on the 21st and have a special meeting to approve the bond articles at that point.
I'd really like to know if I'm approving $1 million parking lot or not. Other than that, I think the plan looks solid, it's a lot of work and looks well thought out, and so you could prepare the documents with blanks on those two lines, we can. Just be
I strongly disagree on the parking lot, but I think that, personally, I feel comfortable with, this cost. The one thing I will say is, I am very confident that the capital campaign is going to raise, twice as much money. I do worry that if we take out, say we're going to bond for $9 million and it doesn't happen, there is that then what, but we do have that $550,000 we had set aside for the...
Which we agree we talk about later.
Which we agree to talk about later, right, but
I'm not ready to commit that money.
No, I understand, but there is a contingency, so I would personally, as a, backup measure, so.
Yeah, I can't go higher than 9 on the bond. That's my number on the bond, so that's just where I'm parked. But it sounds like we have a path to get there with a reasonable amount of risk. So I would like that risk to be smaller, but that's by looking at the parking lot, that's all.
Could I just offer for the board, just seeing that there's some, just some final discussions, it sounds like, on the scope number, suggests I probably don't want to have a special meeting, but I might suggest just having a special meeting after the 21st, just so we can have all the documents just prepared and double checked. I don't want to necessarily be trying to do it on the fly during the meeting, just with this. So if we can have the team here come back, answer some of those outstanding questions, we can round out that number. If it's 10.2, if it's 10.1, if it's 10, at the end of that discussion, and then make sure all those documents are prepared to reflect what you would like to see, and then we can meet that before August 3rd if you would be so inclined.
Were there some general items, like I know we talked about the mechanical basement, are there some items that you needed specific feedback on at this point, or?
Yeah, so that's one, the mechanical piece of either the penthouse area for the mechanical or the basement. The question with the basement is adding some storage for the town band. I think between the two options, if you went with the one on the roof versus the basement space that has some extra space, it's around $50,000-$60,000 roughly. We can refine that a little more based on if you had a preference this evening. Question about the roof too. The feeling right now is that's part of the scope that would likely be needed based on the renovation component that was shared as a potential open item, along with some of the site work that was brought up this evening. Those are kind of the main pieces, I guess. And also, I think there's some lines in there, like for upfit and furniture. We can take that line down. We haven't really examined that since we changed from 1 to 2 stories. I think we can reduce that line.
I was wondering why there was asbestos. We just built the building in the 90s. How can there be any asbestos left?
It's the section from the original building.
That didn't get touched the first time we did this construction. But yes, it's just that's $35,000. It's not.
Yeah, we took a bunch of core samples last winter and came up with that. There's no issues today or anything. It's just disturbing it.
I mean, I'm kind of with Greta, is that $70,000 for storage for band stuff seems a bit much when we're asking the library to take these huge reductions, but I just in my head, it would be nice, I think, over the next decade, library might be able to use that space for storage, so I I don't feel strong, I don't know mechanically one way if it makes any difference at all, but nice dry basement's a good thing to have. So maybe we'll leave that up to the design team to decide what they want to advocate for, but seems like there should be a cheaper solution for the band.
Yeah. I think that's something to work on, to look at longer term. In a separate discussion would be solutions for the band, and how to, we can work with them as a town and come up with some solutions. Yeah, as I mentioned, I would be inclined to put it on the roof to have that bit of a cost savings. And then as far as the roof goes, I mean, I don't even pretend to be an expert in the roof, but it is my absolute worst nightmare to have water leaking on books, so. I'm inclined to, ensure that didn't happen, but.
So what it sounds like, maybe some feedback from the design committee on the penthouse versus the, penthouse in the term of mechanical penthouse, not a penthouse.
Yeah, it sounds so.
But versus the basement component,
Yeah.
and then some feedback on potential site work with the parking lot variation, and operationally some additional feedback and thought from the design committee on that. That'd be helpful for next week.
But then, is there consensus then, but overall, the scope of the project and agreement that this is?
Yeah.
Okay, is that helpful for you all, and, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you all very much for being engaged and for all of your hard work and for continuing to participate meaningfully in the process. So David, I'm going to ask you, we can email it to her. That would be great. Thank you.
See you later. Have fun. Have a good night, guys.
And with that, that brings us to an event permit. I'm sad everybody didn't want to stay.
We have a temporary event permit for a Touch a Truck event. It's over at Trinity Baptist campus. It's been the fifth or sixth year it's been held. Staff participates too, a couple other departments. It's gone well. So they project a pretty good amount of people that flow through there throughout the day. It's pretty popular events. I've been to a few over the last couple of years. So there's conditions, staff's included.
Right up your alley.
Yes, big trucks are. They're very popular. So staff recommends approval with as presented.
Any comments or questions? If not, there is a motion.
Find the document.
Go ahead, Ellie.
I move to approve a temporary event permit for Touch a Truck on August 15th, 2026.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Permit granted. And that brings us to the manager's report.
Yeah, just read a couple things I shared last week. Excited to announce our police chief hire. Brian Labarge is currently the top deputy in Burlington. He'll be coming on board August 3rd. He's served over 21 years for the city. Just want to really thinking about this was a really good process overall. Our consultant team was great. A number of community stakeholders be engaged in this process, and really excited to have Brian join our team, and excited to introduce him to the select board and the community. So we'll be excited to have him join, and we're also getting ready to celebrate Chief Foley's retirement. It was great to see him, Bruce, in the parade over the weekend as well. Tax bill, Shirley included, I put in your packet just a rate summary. We have a couple other voted exemptions that go on the tax bill every year for current use and veterans exemptions to make up the education tax. So there's informational for the board. Tax bills were printed. The printer worked very hard the last couple of days, and they are been sorted and off to our vendor to get them mailed out. We have had some delivered to town staff that work in town hall and live in town hall. So, or not live in town hall. Sometimes it feels like we live in town hall.
Feels like it,
yeah.
I do see you here a lot.
So we have met our requirement there to at least have one delivered, but those will be out. We get questions this time of year from the community on those. The first payment due in mid-August. Thanks to our team for that. It's a lift up here. Earlier there were about about a half dozen stacks of papers of tax bills to sort, and it was a finance and assessors team, all hands on deck to get that all out. So the inner workings of local government to make it all happen. And then this mention on the town band, I'm going to keep a portalet over there for the summer. There's a short-term solution with something that came up with the libraries. Closes at 7 o'clock now on Wednesdays, creating a little bit of an issue for access for facilities. So we kept the ADA portalet over there through August. Longer term, just kind of thinking those logistics, but didn't want to. That was the thing quickly to do on the fly with their concerts. So we'll get that sorted out. It's there. It's not moving. And then with the storage issue, thinking about potentially getting a storage container. I checked with the Historical Society to put it next to the old schoolhouse. They were fine with it. They just asked, just wait till after the 4th of July. So we're trying to get that squared away. But, certainly I've been chatting with the band leadership throughout this process of the library and trying to think of a longer term solution for the band. It's getting the chairs and stands out from underneath the bandstand and lifting them up, and it becomes quite a process. So I think there's a solution to be had. We just need to think of something with a little more time and capacity for it. So if you see a storage pod appear there, that's just be through August, and that's the plan for it. That's all I have for manager's report.
That brings us to other business.
We have a slew of catering permits. And first, I put on the agenda the 2 renewals we had for licenses. One is a first class for the Town Place Suites. I don't think we have an outdoor. And one is the Casa Grande first class renewal and classic. Casa Grande has a 3rd class. Reminder, the first class is spirits and the 3rd class is beer and wine, I believe, for sale. These are kind of off cycle because it's due on the date they received their license. They were newer establishments, so they kind of hit mid-cycle through the year. And Sarah always stays in front of these when they're up for renewal. So no violations, no concerns voiced to the town by the state or anyone. Our suggestion is approval for renewal.
So we have a motion. Just say move to approve. Usually what I
Move
say.
to approve is recommended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the liquor licenses are granted.
Catering permits.
Then catering permits, yep.
So I can just share all these at once, and you can decide if you want to take them in a slate. One is a private wedding coming up on 109 Tree Hill Road off of Sunset Hill. About 200 people. This is on August 9th. They did a temporary event permit in the spring. I'll approve the staff level. That's all set, so you don't see any issue with this license here, or catering permit. Then we have 3 at Isham Family Barn, Sarah provided to me.
Must be wedding season.
You have it off this year.
Yay.
I don't know what this is. Special events permit. Sorry, bear with me a second. What this event is. Yeah, it's an event to have a. Doesn't say on this application what the event is, but it's a manufacturer to have a vending 4-foot table on the inside. Then, no, that's not a bingo night. I can follow up with you for what this event is. It just isn't saying it on this application right here, but it's a manufacturer. I imagine they're going to be at some event at the barn coming up here on July 12th, which is coming up next week. Sarah got these today. Oh. Sorry, I don't have that full piece. I'm seeing it's cut off, but I can follow up on that if you want to wait.
Well, somebody on staff looked at it, right?
Yeah.
Told you it was okay,
Yeah.
so we'll.
Yeah, it's, in general, for things at Isham's, it's always, they have that site plan approval for that type, so we don't have concern about consumption there.
Right.
And actually, it looks like it's the same place for 3 weeks in a row for an event going on there. That would be it. I can just tell you what that is if you're interested. But
Sure, if you'll just pop in an email, but we can approve.
We'd be comfortable with the site.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Not me.
That was a question, right?
Yeah, it was a question. There was a question mark at the end. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the catering permits are granted. Any other business?
Nope.
Okay, and that brings us to final thoughts on any of the agenda items. Jean?
You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job, Greta. I appreciate you stepping up and filling in the absence of our leader, so.
Excellent. Thank you. And with that, we do have an anticipated executive session. I think you have some alternate wording.
All right. I move to find that premature public knowledge regarding a contract, a labor relations agreement with employees, and an arbitration hearing would clearly place the town at a substantial disadvantage, and further move that we enter executive session to discuss a contract, a labor relations agreement with employees, and an arbitration hearing under Title I, Sections 313A, 1A, B, and C, and invite Town Manager Eric Wells to join all discussions.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We are entering executive session, and we are not going to make any substantive decisions, so we will not be returning to this room.